With the release of the new digital Circus episode came the revival of discussion around Jax and Ragatha being problematic and the apparent imbalance between how they are both treated despite their actions, with the most popular sentiment being that Ragatha doesn't deserve the hate or rather the criticism she gets when it comes to her toxic positivity and specifically her crash out in episode 5, that you can't criticize her for it at all and in some cases that it's not problematic at all. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, Jax is a little baby boy that can't do wrong because of his sad backstory. Well, my dear viewer, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong! You can absolutely criticize both of them and they are both absolutely problematic. Starting with Jax, who is the easiest to explain, episode 5 and 6 revealed that he is suffering on the inside due to the implied loss of his friend, Rivet, and he's only acting like an asshole in an attempt to push away others so he doesn't get close to them, only to potentially lose them to abstraction and feel the same pain he felt when Rivet abstracted all over again. This, however, does not excuse even an inkling of his toxic negativity to cope with his internal struggles towards any of the cast, the biggest example being Gangle. His borderline abuse of her has been so bad that she actively feared that Jax was going to retaliate against her for not being on his team during the gunfight. His actions and treatment of the other characters cannot be tolerated no matter what his backstory. Everyone in the circus is suffering and doesn't like to be in it. Even Jax said so himself. And I'm not saying you can't sympathize with him. In fact, I actually empathize with him. I've lost friends before in very malicious ways when they suddenly turned against me out of nowhere. And it's so hard to open yourself up to others in fear of what we've lost before because you're afraid you'll lose it again. But coping with this denial in such a manner as he's been doing since episode 1 is not only destructive to the rest of the cast, but also to himself. Now as for Ragatha, her situation is not as clear as Jax, but she is still problematic regardless. Episode 6 acknowledged that her toxic positivity was a problem when Ragatha said that despite her trying to make everyone happy, she ended up pushing people away from her. It may not be as externally destructive like Jax's asshole tendencies, but it is still externally destructive to herself and others in the circus, something that Kinger acknowledged as well, providing comfort to her that she doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to friendship. You can't be there for everyone, and when you're not, it's not fair to beat yourself up for it.
The way I see it, relationships are two-sided, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to do all the heavy lifting when the other isn't in the mood. We all go through and deal with things differently, and sometimes you just need to let people do things their own way, as long as you're still there when they need you. Giving someone space should never be the same as giving up on them.
Toxic positivity is externally destructive the same way being an asshole is. It's destructive because people pick up on that. It alters how they see not only you, but your surrounding actions, and other people. You sow seeds of doubt into people when you are falsely being positive, when you're just doing it because you think you need to, and it causes them to distance themselves from you because they think you're not being genuine, which you aren't. The best example of this in the show is when Gango outright says after a while of Ragatha's nice girl routine, it became difficult to tell how genuine she was actually being with her, and later on in the episode when Ragatha remarks that Gango and Zubul don't even talk to her. And speaking from experience as well, I empathize with Ragatha and her struggle. Quick story time, but on my first day at my new job, I was immediately attempting to be all extroverted with my coworkers when I'm normally pretty introverted and just like to get to know people over time very slowly, to put on a friendly front so we'd all get along. But in the end, aside from a few mandatory reciprocations, they all just became indifferent of me. I could tell because of how they all loved, sounded, and were enthusiastic to talk to each other compared to me. It's because I wasn't genuine with myself, and put on a fake front that it became ingenuine for them to even try and get to know the real me because in their eyes, there wasn't a real me to begin with. Now, the main topic of discussion when it comes to Ragatha is when she lashed out in episode 5. I won't argue that it wasn't valid considering the stress Jax puts on her though, but it doesn't matter that it was towards Jax because it didn't just affect Jax. Because of Jax, while it is not fully revealed yet, she did push away Jax, that she failed him, especially evident by how Jax thinks on her positivity act in the present during episode 5.
Doesn't she get on your nerves sometimes?
I mean, she's nice to everyone.
I don't know. I think she tries way too hard. Like, we're stuck in... Why are you always pretending everything's always fine? Like, if you tell someone they're loved and appreciated every day, it kind of loses all meaning. It just feels like she's trying to take advantage of you, you know? I don't know.
He now sees it all as a front to simply toy with his emotions, as in genuine. And it wasn't just with Jax either, like I said. It affected Pomni as well, and in an unfortunate twist of irony, it ended up pushing Pomni away at least a little in episode 6. At the very least in the beginning when Pomni simply shrugged off Ragatha's attempt to be there in an uncalled for moment. It wasn't healthy for her, and more importantly for anyone else. So while in the end she was able to learn that it's okay to give people space as long as you're still there when they need you with the help of Kinger, it still does not excuse the fact that her toxic positivity was a problematic issue that was actively harming her and the rest of the cast, with the exception of Kinger, and by judging by the end of episode 6, she seems to be doing much better. However, when it comes down to it, the topic of toxic positivity in my mind is something that's very underrepresented and under-talked about, and I will be dedicating a whole video to the topic of toxic positivity in the future, but for now, I simply wanted to focus on Ragatha and her aspect of toxic positivity. Ultimately, when it comes down to critiquing Jax and Ragatha, it shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be a competition to see who is worse and who is better because they both cause problems and are both worthy of criticism. Two characters can be flawed at the same time, and just because one may seem worse on the surface should not absolve the other of judgment. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See y'all in the next video.